Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for The Punisher Season 1 on Netflix. And I gotta say, I really enjoyed this. Now, I haven't seen any of the other Marvel shows on Netflix, not because I don't like them or weren't interested in them, it's just I haven't gotten around to doing it, but this one popped up and I'm like, okay, let's see what this is about. I've been hearing good things about it, and I'm really glad I looked into it because they did a really great job of just really digging into who Frank Castle is as the Punisher and just really going into great detail of showing who he is, how he kind of operates, and just giving him a good story and good character development, as long as also going along with the rest of his supporting cast. So we start off, and Frank's still finishing up taking out all the people that were associated with killing his family. Seeing him take down these bikers. We see him do this amazing shot where there's this dude in Juarez, Mexico, and he is in El Paso, Texas with a sniper rifle and takes him out, and it was just crazy. And him just keep going through it, and then we get to a point where it's a time later, and he's working at a construction site, taking down walls. And that works because he still has that rage and that anger. Going through and taking out the people that killed his family still has done nothing to change that. He's still angry and he still doesn't know what to do, so he just keeps to himself. People on the construction site think that he's stupid, and everybody's kind of pissed at him because he keeps working away, and he's saying, and there are other people are saying that he's making everybody look bad. So what happens is we get this new guy introduced onto the scene. He kind of tries to make friends with Frank, and he goes, I'm not interested in being friends or whatnot, and just kind of leaves him to his own devices. And this group of people at the construction site, this one dude needs money, and they go for a job to rip off this poker game with the mafia. But they get down one person because of an on-site accident, and they recruit the new guy. And the new guy does something stupid in that he has his wallet on him, and while he's grabbing the money from the poker game when they're holding it up, his wallet pops out and he's made. So they all run off, they get to the construction site, and the other guys go, well, we gotta kill you, man. Otherwise you're gonna squeal. And he's going, no, just let me go, I'll hide, I won't say anything. And they don't want to take that chance, so they start pouring concrete into a hole, and pretty much are trying to Jimmy Hop the dude by drowning him in concrete. Well, Frank's already on site and doing his thing, and he hears all the commotion and goes at him with a sledgehammer. And this was nasty. Now, I don't consider this torture porn or any of the other violence torture porn levels. That's just graphic violence for the sake of graphic violence and nothing else. This is to show this violence, while nasty and just kind of gnarly, serves a purpose of showing that Frank is tactical and kind of methodical in how he does his things, and like taking out people with what he wants in his rage and just fucking screwing him over. And he helps the guy. He gives the money to him, tells him to leave town. He goes, and he then takes out the mafia guys in a pretty badass way. Shuts off the lights, and we just see the flashes of gunfire, and then this one dude, the only one left, turns the lights on, and then Frank comes, pops him in the back of the head, and then walks out. But this is where it really starts picking up, and the real impetus for the story arc for Frank going forward starts. As he is leaving, we see him through the lens of a surveillance camera. We see someone else kind of looking at him, and we know that the Punisher's active, because at this point, everybody thinks that Frank Castle's dead. So we then start off, and Micro calls Frank to help him, and he is wary of him and gets Karen to kind of do some digging, and she finds that Micro is a former NSA analyst who got killed to cover up a story. This story is of Kandahar, where this Afghan police officer was killed by what looks like a group of American soldiers. He was being interrogated for some reason, and he was killed. And this links up to Frank because it's linked to his old unit. And Frank, of course, goes to Micro's family to kind of suss them out and kind of put a kind of leverage over Micro, saying, I know where your family is, so take that as you will. So Frank then also goes to interrogate this guy Wolf, who is the head of Homeland Security. And that was a pretty cool scene where Frank just gets in. He somehow infiltrates his house without setting off any of the motion detectors, and it's later learned that he probably did it kind of like an evil Santa Claus down the chimney. But that was a pretty cool fight scene where it shifts between the outside perspective of the house and the inside perspective, and we find out that Wolf knew about it and all the kind of cover up that was associated with it, and he kind of gets out of the way, and Frank just kills him pretty cool by just snapping his neck. Now, while this is going on, we see that one of the new agents in Homeland Security, well, not new, brought back, was the former partner of the Afghan police officer who was killed, and she's still looking into his death. And, of course, she goes to Billy, who was a former comrade of Frank's, to get some more dirt and get some more information. It first starts out kind of like that, and then kind of evolves into a relationship. So we then get to Frank interrogating Micro, which was really cool to learn the dynamic between them, because Frank doesn't trust Micro, and Micro kind of trusts him, which led him to the position of him being tied to a chair naked, and Frank just screwing with him, and Micro was saying, hey, if you don't let me do this thing on the computer, bombs are going to blow us up. And Frank gets to the point where he says there aren't any bombs, and Micro is able to use the routine kind of thing to drug him and then try and get him to be like, listen, I could have killed you if I wanted to. Whatever. So while they're doing this, we get to Madani and Sam getting closer as a unit, as partners, investigating Wolf, and we get into flashbacks as well of this CIA agent who we know at the moment as Agent Orange, and we get a more fleshed out version of what has happened of Operation Cerberus, which was pretty much just an off the books CIA thing run by this Agent Orange guy to take out people and fund it by using heroin, by putting it in the bodies of dead soldiers. And then they'd be shipped back home and they distribute it. But he was pretty much using them as a hit squad. And on one of the hits, there were massive casualties, and it was pretty much an ambush. And Frank's pissed off. Everybody's kind of like rattled and everything. Agent Orange is asking if the dude was taken out. Frank gets pissed off and clocks him a good one, which damages his left eye. And, of course, that leads to kind of like the disillusion of it. Billy stopped him from killing the dude, saying, listen, just go home, we'll get done with this, we're done. So, we also get into Micro's death, because he had found the video footage of this, he had sent it to Madani, and he had sent it to Frank as a peace offering, showing, I've seen this kind of thing. And that is what got Wolf onto him, and the rest of the kind of conspiracy. They got him pretty much in broad daylight. He ran from his family. They shot him, but it hit his cell phone and saved him, and he's been faking his death ever since. So, now that they've kind of got that together, Micro and Frank get into the position like, well, I'm going to need weapons to take these people out, and we got to do it my way. No justice system, I take them out. And Micro's like, all right. So they get into finding out that there is a shipment of weapons from this Greek smuggler, and they set up a way to go and get it. But the thing is, Homeland is attempting to take it too, but they beat them to it. And that was pretty funny how they made Homeland just completely they didn't know what was going on and they were completely confused, which led to a pretty cool car chase between Frank and a Mustang and Madani and a nice Mustang too. I'm a Mustang guy. I like this car chase, but it kind of hurt me when Micro came back and just bashed in Madani's Mustang because Frank had made the comment that Micro doesn't like to get his hands dirty. Well, this was him getting his hands dirty. But, however, he almost killed Madani. So Frank has to get out, drag her from the car, and set her on the side of the road to make sure she was safe. But, however, this tips Frank's hand, and Madani does see his face and know that he is Frank Castle, the Punisher. So she's got that angle to investigate now. So, while this is going on as well, we see that there's this other character introduced, Lewis. He's been a part of Curtis's veteran support group. And Curtis is one of the only other people that knows that Frank Castle is alive, one of his best friends. And I really liked what they did with the whole kind of Lewis and the veteran support group. I think they did a very good job of showing the difficulties of going into the military and then trying to transition back into civilian life. Because that was a very hard thing for Lewis to understand, because he would have nightmares. We saw in an episode that as he was asleep, his father came home and he was having a nightmare and he pulled out his gun and fired. He didn't hit or kill anybody, but it was freaking him out. And that led him to a foxhole in the backyard. And he's still he can't really acclimate himself well to this, and he tried to get into a job at Anvil, which is where Billy works and is one of the head honchos there. But they reject him because Curtis can tell this is a dude that's going to snap. And Lewis takes this very hard and doesn't like this. So as we continue on, we see that the main kind of thing, the person who videotaped the whole execution was Gunner, one of the other people in Cerberus. As we're learning throughout the rest of the show, this was the impetus for the hit on Frank's family. They thought that he was the one that videotaped it and was going to leak it, so they went to hit to take him out. However, we find out that it was Gunner. So this leads them to go to him to learn who Agent Orange is. And we learn that it is William Rollins. But as they learn this, a mercenary attack team is sent to take out Gunner while Frank's there, and they get into a pretty cool fight. They tactically just take out all the people. Now, granted, Frank is severely wounded, and Gunner is mortally wounded. But Micro is only able to get to Frank and pull him out, and he does a pretty good job of helping him out. So, of course, we then further on, and Curtis is the one that helps him. Billy learns that Frank's under investigation by Madani, and he's calling Frank over the radio, and they do meet, and he offers to get him out of the country, to give him a new life and everything, but Frank refuses. And one of the biggest reveals we see after this is, of course, Billy was waiting for him at the dock, and we learn that he's working with Rollins, because he was going to kill Frank if he came there. So I was like, whoa. We get an update on Lewis, who we learn is working with another person in the veteran group, O'Connor, they're trying to hand out Second Amendment leaflets because there was a case going on. And this leads a police officer to tell him to disperse. But, of course, Lewis is standing up for himself, and the cop arrests him on pretty much bogus charges. Of course, O'Connor doesn't help him or bail him out. It's Curtis that does. So Lewis goes to confront him, and this is another betrayal for Lewis, and he learns that all the stuff that O'Connor was talking about was a lie. And, of course, O'Connor tells him to leave, gets a knife and all that, and they get into a situation where Lewis is pretty much only responsive to kill or be killed kind of thing, because someone's got a knife, and he just kills him, and we just see his descent going further and further. So, we then move to a kind of next portion with Frank and Micro trying to get more information on how to get to Rollins. So they find out one of the other conspirators within it is this Colonel Bennett, and he was one of the Operation founders. So while they're trying to do this, Rollins now has information on Frank because of Billy, and they set a trap. They pretty much set Bennett out as bait. Frank does this really cool infiltration of this military base, and as he's just trying to, he's not really interrogating Bennett at all. He's just trying to have enough time for the drone of Micro to latch onto his cell phone so that way they can pull data and all that. But while they're doing that, Billy and his team of operatives come in, and we have another cool tactical firefight where they pretty much throw smoke in there, and Frank's able to take them out one by one and shoots Billy without even realizing that Billy's there. And he just escapes. And a real cool portion was that one soldier was in a tunnel, and he was a kid, and Frank's just telling him, I know you need to do your job, but just stand down. And he's telling him to stop. So Frank has to turn around, and he shoots him, and he hates that. He doesn't want to hurt anybody else unnecessarily. He doesn't want to kill anybody, but he knows that that kid was doing his job, and it kind of pissed him off that he had to do that. That just shows that another kind of dimension and layer to Frank. So, of course, they kind of get a bead on Rollins because Bennett went to him, talking to him and Billy because he wanted to get out of the country. Of course, this was all just pretty much a ploy, and Billy takes him to a hotel room where he had killed the escort, pretty much, that he was dining with before Frank came in to interrogate him, and Billy kills Bennett, makes it look like it was I don't know if it was like a murder-suicide, because it looked kind of interesting, kind of strange if you try and frame it like that, but it still kind of works out more in their favor. And the last bit that we get into is Madani thinks that her place is bugged, which her office is, and she sets up a fake plan to trap the people going after Frank. So, we then get on and let's see here. Frank is then kind of working and helping Micro's family along as well. They're having some issues. He's trying to help them kind of cope with it. That was a good portion that I liked within the show, in that we saw the other kind of side to Frank's kind of dilemma. We've seen Frank with his whole family taken from him. And then with Micro's family, we see a whole family, but with the father and husband figure taken out, and seen the kind of dynamics with Zach being afraid and kind of using anger to kind of seem like he's not afraid, like hitting his sister for telling on him, having a knife and all that. His sister Leo trying to control everything, and the mother just not knowing what to do. And we then get forward and we see that Rollins and Billy, they want Frank, and Madani and Sam are after them, so they use a trap. They pretty much set up false information that Frank is looking for an arms deal, for more weapons. This, of course, has Billy and Rollins respond by setting up a black team, because they don't want too much connected. They don't want it connected with Anvil too much, but of course, they had to use previous Anvil personnel, and they go, and it's just a straight up nasty firefight between Homeland and Billy and his team. His whole team gets annihilated, but of course, Sam is able to get Billy at gunpoint, and of course, he removes the mask, and he's like, oh crap, it's Billy. And Billy then uses his wrist knife and kills Sam. Well, slashes his throat, and then makes his getaway. Madani comes and sees him and is completely shaken by this, and this of course is another blow to her. Another partner has died, and she is actually there this time, and just seeing her just lose it was really kind of powerful, because then we see her blaming herself for Sam's death and trying to come to terms with it. The really creepy part was that she was covered in blood, and Billy came and helped her wash it off. And it just was a nice kind of eerie scene, because you know that Billy's the one that killed Sam, and he's helping her. It's just a case of the audience knowing something and the character not knowing something, and just having that kind of cool moment for you. So, while that's going on, Lewis has elevated his game and just gone kind of deeper, and is trying to right the wrongs himself. Almost trying to view himself the same way as the Punisher. He sets off bombs that kill innocent people and sends letters and manifesto to Karen, and believing that she's on his side, but she's not. And she gets into a debate with a senator for gun control on the radio, and he calls in, kind of blasting her, and he goes with a sign off in Latin that Frank and Curtis know, and Curtis goes to O'Connor's house, but gets beaten by Lewis and a bomb strapped on him. So Frank helps convince Lewis to help him disarm the bomb, because Lewis thinks that him and Frank are the same, but Frank's like, you kill innocent people. Frank still has his code. He only kills bad people. He doesn't he tries not to kill innocent people. I was going to say not to harm innocent people, but there's sometimes that happens, like the soldier in the base. So he is able to figure out the bomb and is able to help Curtis, but this leads to Frank getting made. He has to get through some cops. Dashcam catches him, and everybody knows that Frank Castle is alive. So we then keep going, and episode 10 is a really cool episode. I really love the structure and what they did with this, since it starts off with various different timelines. We see Karen is interviewing. It starts off in the most basic structure of Karen interviewing the senator on gun control. What happens is Lewis comes and tries to assassinate them both, and we're trying to figure out what's going on. The senator tells one side of the story where he was a hero, and Karen tells the more truthful version where, the senator also says that Frank was allied with Lewis, because at this point they think that he's part of the terrorist plot, which he's not. So Karen tells the more truthful version of Lewis coming in, Frank kind of scaring him off to the point that Lewis uses Karen as a shield. He's got a bomb on himself and kind of going away. Frank fighting with the Anvil security people. He gets dropped. Madani gets the drop on him, but Billy shows up and shoots at him, and Madani then has a standoff and figures out that Billy is the one that killed Sam, and it was just really good. And Lewis, his resolution, I wish there was a little bit more done with him, but I understand what his part was used to pretty much get Frank more out in the open for his enemies to know, because he's trying to deal with all of the issues that come with coming home from a combat scenario and not knowing how to effectively get back into a civilian kind of role. And he's still kind of dealing with that, and at the end, Karen is able to get away. Like, Frank was able to tell her which kind of wire to pull, because he used the same kind of thing on Curtis, and he's like, crap! And Frank kind of pushes him, and he gets into a freezer and blows himself up, because he got himself into such a situation that there was no way he was going to be getting out of it. And he didn't want to go to prison and all that. And it was a sad end to it, but it was the kind of conclusion that was coming from all of the events and actions that had preceded it that he had made. So this led to Frank getting kind of like beat up a little bit, but he's still able to escape. So we then start getting the end-game scenario of this show, in that Rawlings and Billy want to get Frank out in the open. They know about Micro's family, and they kidnap Sarah and Zach. And Frank, of course, is preparing to get at Rollins, and Rollins is getting the go-ahead from the deputy director of the CIA to use all the CIA assets in his own private team, of course, Anvil, to take this out. But of course, the deputy director learns more about everything. He admits to the operations that he's done, and the deputy director's like, well, you do this, you tie it up, and you quit. And this, of course, infuriates Rollins and gets him even more motivated to completely take out Frank. Well, he gets Billy into it and has set up to pretty much have Billy take the fall as well. So they're both kind of trying to double cross each other. So as this is going on, Micro has already talked to Madani and given Rollins his name and is trying to figure out a best case scenario to get out of this. And what they do is they kind of he's trying to set it up so that way most people can live. Frank, of course, sets up a trap at the base, and that's a pretty awesome scene. That's a really great scene. Level of John Wick kind of things. Now, granted, it's not John Wick gun fu, but just the way Frank takes out all those people was really well done. Just the beginning of how he was just taking out people silently, and then he used a knife to chop off someone's head, put a grenade to it, roll it in, and just start off the bedlam and chaos. And just seeing him go and move from weapon to weapon, the shotgun, the frickin' saw that was just taking chunks out of people. Which, by the way, the effects department on this did an amazing job because it didn't look cartoony or anything. The chunks that were flying was like, oh god. So he did that, and he sees everything. He sees that his team is dead, so they arrange a swap, and he demands that Frank and Micro meet at the exchange. So Frank testifies to all this stuff for Kandahar and Cerberus, and him killing the Afghan police officer, and Madani is, holy crap, and all of that to give her the dirt to take down everybody involved. So they meet to do the exchange, and they do the swap, and I was surprised. I at first thought that Micro was dead because of what was going on, because they needed to make sure that everything went as smoothly as possible. So Sarah and Zach had gasoline tanks on their backs, and Billy had the people cut holes in them so that way they could go. And then, of course, Homeland shows up. They grab Micro, and he gets hit by Homeland. So they leave his body, and they take Frank, and they go. We find out that Micro faked his death again to make sure that he could be with his family. And it was crazy because his wife sees him die once, and sees him alive again, and sees him die again, and sees him alive again. It was just crazy, and it was nice to see the family reunited, and to see the kind of cool stuff that was going on afterwards. But of course, this was Frank's plan. He starts getting tortured and interrogated by Rollins because they're at the hideout that Micro and Frank had been using, and there was a countdown going on, and they wanted to stop what was going on. But of course, it was all set up in a ruse. Frank does the code and everything to make sure everything's broadcasted, stabs Rollins, but is unable to kill him, at least at that point, and he just keeps getting beaten, and this is being broadcast. Micro finally shows this to Madani because he wants to make sure that Frank lives. He wants some kind of redemptive arc for Frank because Frank's his friend at this point. They have done all this together, and he wants to help. So while Frank is getting severely beaten, he is wavering between life and death, and we see him having visions of his wife and trying to figure out if Home was being alive or Home was being dead with his family. And he chose to be in life. And of course, Rollins is injecting adrenaline in him to keep him alive, but he gets to a point where he's he's made his choice, but he's not able to completely execute, but he wants Billy to do it to be quick and everything. And Rawlings is telling Billy that he has taken everything from me. And Billy's like, what are you talking about? So Billy does snip some of the zip ties to allow Frank to get to his point where he takes Rawlings, beats him, stabs him, and then does a mountain Game of Thrones kind of style and shoves his fingers in his eyes and kills him. But of course, at this point, Frank is just completely fucked up. So at that point, Billy's pretty much getting ready to take Frank down, but Homelander comes in, wounds him, and Billy runs off. And of course, Frank is pretty much beaten to death. He gets taken to Madani's parents' place, and they help kind of get him back to shape, and they continue on. Now Frank is trying to hunt Billy to take him out, and so does Homelander, but Billy does a badass job of getting away from him. We just see the duality of Frank and Billy. Frank has lost everything, and Billy's about to lose everything, but Billy doesn't care about anybody but himself. Frank has lost his family and wants to right that wrong, and that means taking down Billy. So, Billy does this cool-ass way. He's able to take out two agents, use their walkie-talkies to get kind of a better bead on where the other ones are, take him out and blow up where he was at. So, he goes to Curtis to interrogate him on Frank's whereabouts, but of course it's a trap. Frank's sitting outside with a sniper rifle, so they're in a standoff, and Billy goes, alright, we're going to meet at the Painted Ponies at the carousel, where Frank's family was killed. Of course, we get more kind of background on that, as we had seen previously that Billy was an orphan, but he was put into the system by his mother, and he's got his mother in a home, and messes with her pretty much, with pumping her full of drugs and all that. And we see him talking about that kind of stuff with Frank's family, and we see it as they're doing the fight and all that. That Billy uses these hostages, that he's wounded them to the point, and then he goes, "Well, you better come out, Frank. They're going to bleed out." And it's just really kind of cool to see Frank take him on, and it's a really brutal fight, because I'm surprised Frank was able to continue on with this. Not because of his abilities, but because of his physical condition. But that just goes into effect his will and his rage and his determination to right the wrongs that have been done to him and his family. Kind of similar to a Batman with guns, because Batman's got that unshakable will to do things, and Frank shows that same kind of will in this effect, because he was beaten almost death. And only a couple days later, he's still going after this dude, and in this fight, he gets kind of fucked up, but he then just goes after Bill. He stabs him in the gut with broken glass, and knocks his head in, and seeing all that stuff, saying that he was family, and you had us, and you didn't have to do any of this kind of crap. And, oh god, I didn't know too much about the Punisher, that Billy Russo would Jigsaw, but after seeing what was going on, he smashes his face against this glass and then drags it, and then just keeps beating it and beating it. And Frank decides not to kill him, because that'd be too easy. But to make him have the pain of loss that Frank has felt. And that makes me think of the kind of concept of to the pain. Most notably that I've seen from The Princess Bride. And you're like, okay, that's kind of weird to have that determination, but in The Princess Bride, he brings up the concept of to the pain, of I don't want to kill you. I want you to know the pain that I have felt. And that's what Frank does here. It's partially almost you kind of think it's a mercy. Frank doesn't want to kill this dude. Yes and no. He wants him to feel the same pain that he has felt. So, who is Billy? He is the money, the man, the pretty boy. What has he done? He has taken the money away. He's taken his prestige away. He then takes his beauty away by destroying and mangling his face. That's a powerful thing. And that is definitely a to the pain that Billy deserves at this point. And, of course, before this had happened, Madani had been able to figure out what was going on and went there, and Billy shot her in the head. It's like, oh shit, she's dead. But we get at later on that Madani survives the shot, and that in reward for what he has done, he would be back to being Pete like he was in the beginning, because Rafe, the mentor to Madani and the deputy director of the CIA, kind of say, okay, Frank Castle still has to be wanted. We're going to wipe it for you. And Billy, he was in surgery for a while, and we don't know what memories and stuff he'll have. So they got him under key and everything, and Madani's healing, which is just a testament to how strong she is. I really liked her character. I really liked a lot of characters because a lot of them were developed and grown. We see Karen from the previous Marvel shows developing and having an interesting relationship with Frank. We see Frank moving from the war of taking out the people that took out his family and finishing that up to what does he do now? We see Madani moving past the same kind of things. Curtis trying to deal with the same things that other people are dealing with in this veteran group and telling Frank, listen, I do this also for me because I'm trying to find those answers too. And it's really well done. I really like it, and all the action and everything, and seeing how it ends with Frank going to the group and just talking about it and being afraid of not having that war. And he's scared. And that's big growth. You would think that, nothing much changed. He's pretty much at the same point that he was in the beginning. No. He has kind of ended that war. He doesn't know what to do. And that's a powerful and interesting question that I would hope that they explore in the next season. But if they don't do a next season and tie it more in with anything, I think this is a good endpoint. But I would really like another season with what they've done. So, another thing that we saw was that Frank and Micro were at Thanksgiving, and he just drops Micro off and says, I don't want to do anything with it, and just kind of drives off. And just seeing Micro reunited with his family was pretty cool. Seeing him kind of change and understand the power that he was able to do and what he had done, but still be able to smartly get back to his family and hopefully still be a friend to Frank was pretty cool. I think they just did a very good job of adapting Frank and the Punisher in this show, and I liked pretty much all the stuff that was going on with it. The music and everything from like the opening and the ending and just all the bluesy kind of metal-y rock things that were going on. It just did a very good job of telling a very good story that was interesting, keeping you on your toes with good character development while not making it torture porn level crazy, but still showing the consequences of violence. So I would really recommend this to anybody that's into Marvel, even people that aren't into Marvel. If you're into really good character development and very well done action scenes and just a nice plotted out plot, I would totally recommend this for you. But if you're squeamish at blood and the violent stuff, this is totally not your thing. But that would be something else for you to go to. You'd have to go somewhere else. But this is pretty good. I was really happy that I watched this, and I'm going to have to look into other stuff that's going on Netflix with these Marvel shows. So those are my opinions on the first season of Punisher. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.